So welcome to today's session, which is part of our Smarter SMSF Integrations Week, where we take a look at a range of the integrations that we have to order your SMSF documents via the Smarter SMSF platform. This is our third webinar of the week, and today we're going to be focusing on how you can use our integration with SuperMate around ordering of documents, and importantly, the two-way integration that we have using the SuperMate API. So in terms of what we're going to cover today, we're going to give you a little bit of information about us at Smarter SMSF, the platform that we developed, and ultimately why people utilize our services and the 80 plus documents that we have on our Smarter SMSF platform. We're going to work through the requirements of connecting up your SuperMate software to enable you to undertake activities and, most importantly, be able to populate those different order forms that we have. And then we'll go through and we'll actually dive in and show you how all that works, most importantly, as part of our live demo, and talk to you as we work through some of these documents that, yes, you can naturally get within your SMSF software. We know that all of the software providers, SMSF software providers, have their own templates and information available in there. And we want to, as we go through some of these, talk about some of the differences and why you might want to look at a specialist set of documents that we have linked to the deed that we have with Smarter SMSF. And then finish off with what's ahead and ultimately the way in which we see the relationship continuing to evolve with the SuperMate team. Now, a little bit about us. Many of you will know us, having been around for some time, that our focuses are on SMSF entirely and looking at not only our documents, but our education and technical support that we provide. Now, we deal with some 1,400 users across our platform, not only in documents, but in education as well. So people touching our platform in some way, shape or form, whether they are members, so they have a subscription to access different elements of our platform, or whether they simply come in and order on a pay-as-you-go, whether it's once, whether it's multiple times a year. That's sort of the information that we have around the user base that touches our Smarter SMSF platform. We are predominantly a business-to-business solution. So we work with accountants, we work with financial advisors, we work with lawyers, auditors, and so forth, that then support their SMSF clients within the industry. When it comes to things like these documents, we're not expecting trustees really to come in with some implied level. We expect an implied level knowledge, is what I should say, around understanding why a certain document is being created. The fact that it's our depth of knowledge, in particular with some of these documents, that is required to be able to make sure that you're doing things right. And then we leverage the technology stack that we have on here. So using SuperMate in this instance to save time and efficiency as part of that process. And we'll talk about a little bit more later the types of firms that we work with. But clearly we have a much greater affinity to those that have a level of specialization within their business. So they might be specialist administrators. We work with many of those, or even specialist divisions within those organizations, noting that there is a wide range of events and members across that client base that require different types of documents that might not be ordinarily available through either the software or even through other providers that sit within the industry. And we really hang our hat on the fact that we have the most comprehensive SMSF document list to be able to order from within the country. A couple of really important things here to note is that all of the documentation on our platform is owned by Smarter SMSF, from the deed to all of the legal documents, who were originally developed by Ian Glenister, co-owner, now retired. So he was the developer of our Smarter SMSF deed, and obviously LRBA documents and those others that he's developed along the way. So when he retired, we made the decision to acquire all that IP ourselves. We didn't want third-party risk in our platform that we know many other providers have that level of risk in their business as well, because they don't necessarily own the IP. And we have seen history dictates the fact that when relationships go sour, different parties leave, and the one left carrying the can is obviously the working professionals and their clients. And we know the ever-growing importance around documentation and the linking of those documents to the primary deed. In terms of where we're at now, all the documentation that initially has been developed and then is ongoingly developed is done by Australian legal practitioners. So we do work with Hill Legal as our appointed lawyers, and I've been working with Chris and his team since at least 2016, when we, myself, him and Ian, rewrote the deed as part of the Simpler Super reforms. And what we have done this year as well is take that another level to actually introduce the concept of our Smarter Legal Review service. So if you have things like deed updates, changes of trustees, BDBNs, those sorts of things that you want to have that legal sign off done, you have that legal review process available and embedded within those forms as well. In addition to the fact that you can look at using the service to get deed of rectifications and those sorts of things done as well. I've touched on the fact that we have a comprehensive range of documents. We don't go into breadth. We know what we're good at. We work within the context of SMSFs, but where our competitors really go wide and look into other areas of the industry, employment law, or whether it's family trusts and those sorts of things, we go deep into our SMSF work where we have things that others don't have. Lost pension deeds is probably the best example we can do there. The fact that we've added asset concentration into things like investment strategies and so forth. Our fund members' guardian documents are a really good example as well. And as I touched on before, the fact that you can access all of the content that we have on our site through either a pay-as-you-go basis, or we have subscription-based products that suit the size of you and your business. So a little bit about the platform, and I'm going to go through these and then I'm going to jump online to just highlight some of these things for you. So as a specialist business, we have a core focus on that specialization, but then how we can tie the automation to that to enable you to create a document. So the ordering time is fairly instantaneous. So when I say fairly instantaneous, what I mean is that subject to the complexity of the particular documents that are being ordered, you might be looking at 2 minutes, you might be looking at 5 minutes for that information to come through. The only time that might take a little bit more, again, is where you might have that legal review process, and therefore it goes through a separate system where it may be 2 or 3, maybe up to 5 days, subject to the complexities of it, to have that sign off or potentially that particular issue that is rectified. From a system platform point of view, we have our Amazon Web Services. So all of our data, our tech stack is hosted through AWS with information stored in the Sydney location. And not only do we have the platform to order the documents, but what you'll see as we work through today is we have these different areas to the site that we then use single sign-on to move you seamlessly, switching you from different areas. And one of the areas that we've developed a lot over recent times has been our orders or users console that gives you information around who is part of that subscription, the permissions they have, and the order details as well. Before we jump into that, what we'll do there is we also have things around like the SSL certificates. So any payments that you have can be done through there. And we have the ability to make those credit card payments as part of the process as well. So what I'm going to do here, so this is our existing platform, and I'm not going to spend a lot of time here today because I want to work you through our new platform. But what we have is when you log in, you'll come to our site and you'll see here you've got the Create New, and currently we have our Create New beta, and this is really what this is highlighting at the top here. And then within our integrations, we have the various integrations, and it's the connecting to SuperMate here. So our original platform, and one that still exists at the moment that we are in the process of decommissioning in sort of in this first half of the new financial year coming up, or the second half of the calendar year, whichever way you want to look at it. The integrations is a separate area in here, as opposed to when we compare in our new platform. So all you need to do is go to here and then create new, and it will log you in to the new platform via single sign-on, as I said before. What you can then see in here is the fact that if you click on a particular document, you have the ability to order and choose the integration from the top of the page here. Okay, so we are agnostic in terms of the software that is available. So it allows you, subject to the different software you're using, and in this instance, SuperMate, to enable you to connect. Now, we use a traffic light system that you can see here that enables you to see whether you are connected or you're not connected. And we'll come back to this shortly and show you what that process is. But what I did want to show you is our user console or orders console that I said here. And that, once you log in, switches you across, in essence, to this page here. And the reason why I wanted to show you this information is that it gives you all of the detail about not only your subscription, but the different users that are part of the subscription that you can see here. We are still building out the ability to have full control over who to add, who to remove, and we run this in a parent-child structure. So what that means is that if you are a parent user, you have full access to be able to see all of the user's profile and any of the relevant orders that have been done. And this is where it becomes important from a process point of view, because if I'm wanting to check the work of David as a process before I want him to generate a particular order, I can then pick this order form up in here and enable me to complete that as a process. So you might have offshore staff, you might have admin staff, and then it goes through and tasks it effectively to a manager. That process allows that to be done in here. But equally, I can go across to the completed orders, and I can go in, and David may have done a particular order for me. I've got a really important meeting today. David's not around to be able to access that. So I can jump in here, I can click on that relevant document, and then it will give me the information that I need to access from there as well. And I've just closed that when I shouldn't have, but anyway, that's fine. So you've got full flexibility in here to manage and control the details of the subscription. So one of the first things we do when you sign up under a subscription is we set up this file structure or structure of the firm. Who do you want to have access to the subscription? So when an order is done, it's naturally just deducting that off the counter based upon the order that has been completed. So, and then it's all about, well, who do you want to have visibility either at their own level, so the child user can only see their own orders, as opposed to a parent that can see all that is going on. And again, you can see the different level of access, and then you can start to build out here the usage report where you can look at it by a particular user, but you can also look at it by a particular document and within a particular time frame as well. And you'll be able to export that information if you want to do some sort of reconciliation. So we're continuing to get feedback on this. This is what we're seeing from a lot of more admin and like I said, specialist firms that have got multiple staff that want to be able to find detail and information, what work has been done, what work has it been charged out as part of a disbursement cost, whatever the case may be. But this orders console or user console here, we see as a really valuable tool to be able to support you and your organization with subscriptions and those users that are going to have access to that subscription as well. The other parts here that I just wanted to touch on is when you come in to create new, you do have your saved orders and your completed orders as well. So your saved orders, as it indicates, it allows you to effectively pick up an order. If you're working through it, you don't have all the information, you can save it and obviously move on. And subject to that order user console there, you can then obviously assign that, or the manager can pick that up, or the parent user can pick that up and enable that work to be completed. The completed orders page, again, pretty self-explanatory, but this is where there are a number of actions that occur off the back of that particular order. So if we go to the new SMSF here, one of the really good examples that we have in here is that you get the ability to download the document ordinarily, but it gives you the opportunity to reset documents. So if you have an error that's found in the document, maybe it's a typo, maybe it's something in the name of the fund, maybe it's an amount that was incorrect, any document other than company and corporations, under a subscription, you have the ability to reset that order back to save orders that will allow you to then make that adjustment and ultimately move on. Okay, so these are actions that enable you to not only access the document, but then do certain things. And one of those things that you can see here is that you can do that one-click setup to SuperMate off the back of that new fund establishment. Now, we're going to spend time looking at that establishment process tomorrow. So I'm not going to sort of jump into that today, but you have the ability to use the two-way integration here to automatically set up off the back of a fund establishment, or even send to the documents area within SuperMate that particular document. So it's not going to work right now because obviously I'm not yet connected, but I'll come back and show you that in just a couple of minutes. So the final thing that I wanted to touch on here is within the relevant order forms, we do then have a number of tooltips and information to help you as you work through the relevant order forms. So I'm just going to jump into our pension commencement here, and you can see these little information things or question marks. You can also, I might jump back and look at the deed upgrade again as well. Probably a really good example here we see quite commonly is the question around QROPS. So again, as you go through, you can then see information in here about what a QROPS is. And then equally, you can go into here, and if you say, well, what is the relevant clause for a Smarter SMSF deed? And it says Rule 29 there. So if we're doing a deed upgrade, if we're actually choosing the Smarter SMSF deed, you'll see we've done little things now that automatically populate that here as well. We also have throughout the platforms in both senses. So here a knowledge base, and also here a knowledge base that takes you across. So if you want to understand things about the integrations, you want to find out sample documents, you can see all this information in here, and it will take you to the relevant areas and allow you to go and have a look at what is the sample document that's going to generate for an investment strategy or for a deed upgrade. We also run in here our change log. So if we want to find out about changes that we've made to the rules of the Smarter SMSF deed at a certain point in time, we've got the opportunity to go and understand what those rule changes are to allow you to go, well, do I need to arrange for a further update or not, based upon what has actually changed there as well. And the final thing, just before we jump in to the integration in more detail, is we have recently introduced our Ask AI. Now, this is very much in its infancy, and we've currently only added in at this point in time around the Smarter SMSF deed. But as you're working through particular order forms, and this is certainly relevant with the deed upgrade, can you explain to me what QROPS is? So what this is enabling us to do is, yes, we might have some tooltips, but it's looking into the documents that we have, and it's starting to give us a little bit more of an explanation that will help to identify different parts to the Smarter SMSF deed. So it might be, what is the rule to add a new member into the SMSF? And so it'll look for things within the deed to enable this to occur. So again, you're looking at the documents that we have sitting behind the AI, and it enables us to then use the AI engine to give us the different answers to help us understand relevant parts to that particular ordering process as well. So we see the AI playing a hugely important role as we move forward into this space as well. And we're very much at sort of the tip of the iceberg, which many people are when it comes to sort of utilizing the AI as well. So before we jump in, I just want to bring us back to our page here. And note that as a business, we are subject to the regular sort of security standards of SuperMate, and we go through each and every year a questionnaire and compliance process, because as a digital service provider under the partner network, in essence for SuperMate, we have to go through and make sure that we have the appropriate levels of security standards in place. So things like multi-factor authentication and the fact that the token needs to be renewed every 24 hours. Trying to think of a whole range of things like that off the top of my head. So there is a process that we need to go through each and every time, which is why things like disconnecting the integration is something that we also ensure occurs, so that actually happens every 24 hours and is in line with, in essence, what the requirements of the ATO are in holding information that would ordinarily be required to be issued because of things like tax file numbers, names, addresses, etc., etc. So getting started, there is a fairly straightforward process. So it is the opportunity for you to either connect, pay as you go, or purchase a subscription. And then, as we spoke about before, it is then a process of logging in and then connecting your SuperMate software. Once you have connected, it is then a process of going in and ordering that relevant document. And we're about to jump into that shortly. But once you sign up, you will receive an email from us confirming the fact that you have either a subscription or you're ordering on a pay-as-you-go basis. You'll get your username, you'll get your password. We also recommend, if you are not already a subscriber on the site, a subscriber to our emails and other things, that you have a double opt-in process done. This just makes sure that when you're ordering and other communications, it's not going into spam or junk mail, and therefore all of the important things that you want to get as part of the journey, you're actually getting, and it's landing in the right spot and not wondering whether it has or hasn't turned up. What we do have on our site as well is that if you do have any problems in terms of the orders or questions and stuff, we have a fully dedicated ticketing support service. So in addition to the fact that you can email us at support@smartersmsf.com, you can see in the bottom right-hand corner here, we have our ability to look up questions that take you into the database here in our knowledge base, but equally you can then ask questions of our team, and it will then triage internally into the relevant parties to look at that particular issue for you as well. So you can type in here SuperMate, for example, and it will bring up information that talks about and has SuperMate tagged in it, in essence, as part of that process. So you can start to have a look at and see if there's something in there that's relevant for you in respect to that particular answer. If not, come in here, answer, ask the question, and away we go. And you can do that, as I said, through here, through the beacon that we have. We also have a support area. So you've got your support tickets that you can do. So in either way, they're sitting there for you to enable you to do that. Or otherwise, you can email us at support@smartersmsf.com. So let's take ourselves back to our slides quickly, just to make sure that I'm sort of staying on track with where we need to be. So the couple of final things before we jump into that connection. So these are the areas that we predominantly have worked on from a development point of view. So we do have a two-way integration. So that is that we can get data to enable us to be able to populate order forms that we have on our site to enable you to generate documents. But what we then are also doing is we are then hosting data. So this is where the two-way integration can apply. So we may be generating documents on our platform, but then, as I showed you in the completed orders page before, it then enables you to post information back into the software. So that can be in respect to setting up a fund. It can be in respect to setting up or posting documents back into the system. And there's more work that we're going to be doing around deed upgrades, around adding members and so forth. And a lot of this is incumbent upon what the API allows us to do. And when we have ideas and we get feedback from our clients, quite regularly we'll go back to the relevant developer teams and share with them that feedback, and then hopefully it can get on scope of the work that they want to do and enable us and therefore you to get access to be able to do more with the technology stack that is available. So we do have that two-way integration there. And one of the things that we have done, and again, this will form part a lot of tomorrow, is the fact that you can take a workflow with our documents and enable you to not only store that data from one form to another, avoiding the factory key, avoiding the fact that we don't then need to create sort of one document that combines multiple outcomes, which can be hugely time inefficient on our side. But then it's the fact that there's an action that sits off the back of that that allows you to, with the new SMSF, send that into SuperMate. As I highlighted, the fact that you can move that company information into a new fund form and move that new fund form into your ABN TFN form. And once that ABN TFN has been done, it would then enable you to update SuperMate with the ABN TFN information as well. So let's get stuck into our demo here. And I'm going to show you first and foremost how to connect. So you can see here, we've got the ability to connect via our existing platform. I'm going to show you pretty much here very quickly how simple that is. I'm not going to do it here because I'm going to do it on our other side. But you can see here, it's asking for the authorization permissions, and away we go. So on this side of the spectrum, what we're looking to do is we can either connect from here, or if we're going into our relevant form, as we have here with our deed upgrade, it allows us to connect within the form here. So the same approach, you can see here, it brings in my information. I've just got it stored there. It's going to authorize the process for me to be able to do that. And then once we have completed that relevant authorization, you can now see that that is connected. So we move from a red traffic light to a green traffic light, and then it's giving us the ability to choose our site, in this instance, Smarter SMSF, and then allows us to choose from the fund list that we have in here. And I'll just go down and I'll pick the Smart Superannuation Fund, and then we import from there. So what this is then doing is enabling us to fill out as much of the information within this form that we have access to from the API that has been developed by the SuperMate team. So we can see in here, it's got our reference, it's got our name here, it's got our address, our establishment date would populate if that information's sitting in there as well. So I'd need to check why that may not have come in there. We've got our relevant law. You'll see in here, we've got an address in the system, but we're not recognizing this on our platform. So that may be the fact that it's a made up address as part of a test. But what we can do is we can go back, and if we delete that, we can then see all the relevant addresses of 9 Wall Street. So the important thing here is if we choose that, it will then validate that address. And going forward, where we know that that address is incorrect and we go other address, we can now see in here that we actually have that address chosen. We can click it from the drop menu and allow us to keep moving along. So what we then have in here is a range of questions that are relevant to the form that don't allow for us to populate via the API. So quite clearly, something like the QROPS, is it yes or no? So if you do choose QROPS, then naturally it's going to produce the QROPS deed and all of the relevant QROPS documentation that is required for His Majesty's revenue service. In this instance, I'm just going to choose no. If we have a history of deed detail inside SuperMate, then again, it will populate the information based upon the history that we have. So a lot of the API work that happens is a function of what I call garbage in, garbage out. So if you're not maintaining that information within your SuperMate software, then that information is not going to come through to us here. Okay, so really important thing to understand. It's like, oh, none of this information has maybe come through. Well, potentially you need to make sure that we've got all that relevant information in the system and it's accurate. And if it is, well, then that's when you might come back to us and go, look, well, let's just submit a ticket here. This information hasn't come through. We can check it, make sure if there's a bug, we can get that fixed and move on. So I'm just going to go no here. Is it under the Smarter SMSF deed? Well, yes, it might have been put in the rule. You can then see here, it's picked up who those members are. So the given names, the family name, the address. So again, if we're not sure that that was the right address, we could go down, we can tick that off. We've got our second member here. Again, that address here, we might need to pick that up. Again, there's just some additional detail there. So it does here pick up things like suite numbers, level numbers. If you're using your business address, for example, as a registered address, that sort of thing can quite clearly happen, and then it will validate it that way as well. We've got individual trustees based upon the structure inside SuperMate. Are they all members here? Yes. Who's the chairperson we want to choose? Additional parties. So do we have this is where we need to check our deed. Is there a principal employer? Is there a founder? Is there someone else that we need to have in terms of those documents getting signed? I'm just going to say no here. And this is where our Smarter legal review comes into that process. So are you simply arranging for the deed upgrade to be done, or do you want to ensure that it's had legal oversight? And if you want that to occur, then you can actually look at and choose the level of scoping, upload the relevant documents, provide any additional detail, and then that will be built into the actual process. So I'm just going to go no there for the sake of this. And then it will go through and allow us to review the information that we have within this form to ultimately then allow us to generate that document. So you can see in here, we've got all this relevant detail. You are going to get an email after this document has been submitted with all this information. So it allows you to check the submitted information with the information that's been generated in the order. The other thing to note here is if you have a subscription, as you can see with me, we have a zero price, which means it's conditionally recognizing me as a member and therefore not being charged. But what will occur is that it will be deducted off my counter. So if I had a Create 50 pack, then it will deduct off 1 and therefore my closing balance becomes 49. And on the anniversary of the subscription, that counter will then reset back to 50 each and every year. So I simply hit place order, and then I would get a range of emails. One is confirmation, 2 is the details of the order there, and then within the relevant time frame, it will email me the submitted order with the link to download the document off Amazon Web Services, the doc storage, as I said, that sits in Sydney, as mentioned before. In addition to that, you then have the completed orders page where you can go back to and access the completed orders information. So it will take you to here. You can see that it is then processing and enables you to then look at and update and simply refresh once that's been done. The other thing I might just quickly highlight here is if we did have a legal review that's been undertaken, what you will see in here, and I'm just trying to find one. So you've got the ability to search over different documents in here as well. You can see in here, we've got legal review. So in this instance here, it's a different color. And then you can mark off as having been completed as part of that. So it will, when you're doing a legal review, it will actually move to a sort of an orangey color. So in this instance, if we had ordered that deed of variation and the deed of variation requested legal review, it's not going to generate the document automatically. The actions, purple actions, is going to become a legal review button here. And it will be on hold until that legal review process has actually been completed. So that takes you through that process. I might just jump to the pension commencement here as well, as one other example here, just to highlight with you today. I'm just going to refresh that because we should now be connected to our SuperMate. So you can see that there. And again, we can go in, choose our relevant site. I'm going to go in and choose our Smart Fund again. So you can also just search over the top of it, choose that. And then importantly here, we're now drilling down further and looking at the different pension accounts that have been set up for that particular member. So in this instance, I'll choose and ABP number 3 there. If I select both of these, it will generate 2 saved orders. Okay, so it will basically create both those orders and we'll put them in the saved orders area. If I only choose one of these and import, it's naturally importing the one, and then we'll move back to this screen to enable me to populate the information that you can see in the relevant form here. So this will just take a few seconds and pick up the information that we know in here. So again, we've got our reference, which is our reference in SuperMate, our fund name, our fund address. So again, if we wanted to make that particular change, again, we would just click that. It would validate that particular address and allows us, therefore, to choose that as part of this process. Okay, we've got our individual trustees. We've got 2 of those. We've got the member. That's something I worked out yesterday, is a bug that I'm getting fixed as we speak. And then it would go through to the next page. And it's given us our date of birth, and it's given us the gender of that individual. It's now not letting me go through because of that particular bug there. Fantastic. So I was hoping yesterday I was able to get through that. I was hoping my dev team would have had that fixed this morning, but we don't. But what I was about to say is that any information that we have in respect to that pension that we imported will effectively come into that pension detail there. So it requires you to set up the pension detail inside your, it's not going to let me, I might just try that one more time. It'll set up the pension information inside SuperMate first, and then again, based on it has let me go through. So you can see in here, what we then have is it being paid under the Smarter SMSF deed? If it is, then we've got our relevant rule number that you can see there, and we have the detail of the pension information that was relevant to the individual. So within SuperMate, that pension commencement date was 2017. Based upon the date of birth of that individual, you can then see that at that point in time, that individual was 66. You can then also see that based upon the individual being 66, they have satisfied the condition of release of attaining age 65. You can also see that it's being given a particular name in SuperMate. So that's the name of the relevant income stream. And then we go in and we're looking at details about whether we are creating this with a known balance or an unknown balance. So in this instance, we will know the detail of that pension. So yes, we have a known balance in respect to that. And therefore here, we can then start to put in place the relevant components and so forth where that information is available to populate as well. So there is a process. We've got some smarts built into our own platform here. So for example, if we don't know the balance and we're wanting to start a pension, then that detail will produce a 2-step process. So it will we'll create pension documents that will commence, and will say we will confirm the balance once the financial statements of the fund, or once the balance at that relevant point in time. So if this was, say, the 1st of June 2024, then, and we don't know the balance at this point in time, then, and we're going to start it with the entire accumulation interest, then from that point of view, it will create a set of documents at the 1st of June. We don't then need to backdate documents to the 1st of June. If that work is done, say, from the 1st of August, we would date that at the 1st of August and say that the balance has been determined as at the 1st of June, having had that initially requested and the trustees approving that, and we hereby confirm the balance, and therefore the minimum for that period was 0 because it was 1 June, et cetera, et cetera. But we're going through and collecting all of this detail. There's certain things that we're putting in here around the payment details that differentiate the way in which you might be using pension documents out of your SMSF software. So there are some very intricate decisions that get made through here that provide discretion, that allow you to take at least the minimum payment. The fact that you can make an election to treat those above minimum payments as commutations if you want to, or from the accumulation account. That sort of election-based stuff sits in this order form as well, once you know the balances. Also, reversionary details also the fact that you can segregate assets as part of that process as well. So I'm not going to go through and complete that end to end for you. Just wanted to show you some of those key differences in the pension documents that we have here. If I want to, I can click save, and that will, as I said before, put that document into the saved orders area that allows me to come back and resume that once I have all that other relevant information in respect to that particular job. So I can go back to the completed orders area here. I'll close that one. And you should also see in here now our deed of variation for this fund has been completed. And you can see in here we've got our document. If there's something that we have down here in respect to a further action, again, I can send the document into the relevant fund. So again, I can put in Smart, and it will allow me to upload that document into SuperMate. So that will then send it in, and you've got a record of that on file inside your SuperMate software as well. Okay, so you'll get that order number, and it's been uploaded, and you'll be able to go and check that as well. So that's pretty much a snapshot of how the integration works, some of the features that we have there as well. So what I'm now going to do is I'm going to take us back to our slides, and I'm going to sort of walk through a couple of other things with you as well. So why do firms ultimately choose us? And I think I spoke about this at the very beginning, the fact that we are specialists at what we do. We are at the forefront of what's happening in our industry, and our documents and our training are very much intrinsically linked. But as things move, we move with them. Okay, so we're looking at case law. We're looking at legislative change, where Div 296 might be an example. What impact does that have on the documents that we have with our clients? And we get feedback from our clients as well. It'd be great with a rollback of a pension. Not only is it a decision to roll back, but well, what happens if we need to roll back because they haven't met the minimum pension for the year? So these sort of features we then can stack into our ordering processes and produce different templates that others just might not necessarily have the ability to do so. I talked a bit earlier about the firms that we work with. And what we've found over the journey is that we have two very different journeys that occur in this respect. So we've got general practitioners, pay as you go. You might come along and order a document here and there. A lot of what it's about is am I doing this right? We trust you. You know what you're doing. You know your elbow from your armpit when it comes to SMSFs. So we're going to work with you to get the document or documents that we need. I'm not that worried about whether I want to hook up my SuperMate integration or not. I literally had a phone call with a SuperMate client about that before I jumped online today, looking at a set of documents that were needed around the payment of a superannuation death benefit and reversionary pension, et cetera, et cetera. And at the other end of the spectrum, we have our administrators and specialist firms. So what we see there is they know what they're doing. They know what they're looking for, but they want to ensure that what they're using for their clients is best practice. So there's a level of due diligence, there's a level of testing, they're happy with it. And once they're happy with it, then they want a consistent and efficient experience because of the high volume work that needs to happen within that organization. So from that point of view, what we then see is those administrators are touching 250, 400, 500, 600, 1,000 documents a year. And it's done where they can attach and hook up that SuperMate software and then let them run and do the deed upgrades that they need to, do the investment strategies, do the pension documents, do all those things that they actually need to do. And when something doesn't work, you've got the level of support that you need to, as we touched about before. Get on the phone, lodge a ticket, and then we'll go and see that through with you as well. And that's why we've been recognised on a number of occasions this year. We haven't quite won, but we've been recognised as finalists, both in terms of our documentation, but also with our education as well. So with this, as we sort of get towards the end, this is where we see our unique value proposition. We know that we go deeper when it comes to SMSF docs than anyone in the marketplace. So we don't profess to have 300 plus documents on there. What we do is we have 70, 80, 90 document combinations within documents as well that enable you to look at deeper than just about anyone, what we call our extended thinking. So yes, we have a deed, but the reason why we have the ability to create a special rule in the fund is because we might want to attach pension documents and annex it as if it was part of the deed itself. The fact that with an investment strategy template, you can produce that, but we'll ask questions around the fact that whether the fund has heavy asset concentration, knowing that auditors are looking at and wanting to understand why there's a lack of diversification because of what the ATO has seen historically. What's needed from the market valuation point of view, again, satisfying audit requirements, looking at death benefit nominations and overlaying things like Smarter Legal Review to be able to support what you need in your business. So we are very solutions driven by what we see in the market and by what our members are telling us each and every time as well. So in terms of our subscription packages, we do start at 25 documents over a 12-month period. Okay, and that goes all the way through, as you can see on here, up to 250. And then beyond that rate, we then have a tailored Create Plus solution that really suits the needs of you and your business. Some people need to look at high volumes of documents. Others want the ability to maybe add some other documents into that process, including cover letters, cover pages, for example, to customize and make that more bespoke for themselves. So we can work with you to come up with a customizable solution in that regard. We also quite regularly see people go, well, look, I think I need to create 100, but I'm not sure. We don't really have an understanding. So what I'd suggest there is make contact with us. You can talk to David, who's our sales and development manager, and really get a sense of what that might look like in your practice. But most importantly, in our view, is what we see is people don't get started. So therefore, in a Create 100 sense, we would find it better for you from a cost perspective, because this is where you start looking at that break-even analysis. You're better off looking at a Create 50 or a Create 25. Work with the subscription and start to build your run rate, because you can upgrade and make changes at any time during the year that enable you to maybe take on projects at certain points in time, but then look at building documents with a consistent run rate when you're doing maybe deed upgrades and you're doing some pension documents. You might have an LRBA throughout the year and so forth as well. So we do have an offer this week as part of our end of financial year that if you do look at taking on any of those subscriptions, you will get an additional month free. We do have both monthly and annual subscriptions available. So the offer is available to the end of this week. But most importantly, that offer locks you in at our current pricing, because we will have some price increases for all new subscriptions from the 1st of July 2024 as well. So in terms of what's ahead, as we've sort of spoken about, we've got lots more happening in the live production of our Beta 2.0 platform there. We're doing a lot of work in our client linking. That should be with SuperMate as well. We're actually doing a lot of integration work across all three of those software providers. What we're also focusing on now is, rather than doing that individually in each of the forms, having to connect and then order, we're going to have a client list area. You'll be able to add in the clients that you want to add into there, and then you'll be able to use your integration to sync the data. So if you make a change inside your SuperMate software to an address, when you go to produce the form, you'll be able to hit the sync. It'll sync that client or all of the clients, and then you'll choose that client from the list within the order form, as opposed to having to connect to your SuperMate software each and every time. So we're just finding little ways that we can improve that overall process. We're going to do more enhancements on our admin functionality, so that user console that we're talking about, expanding out our legal review further, and really looking at how we can grow the two-way integration work. So we know that the technology is enabling us to not only push data back when we might establish a fund, but if we're making changes to trustees, well, why can't we look to be able to add a new corporate trustee and then potentially enable us to remove the members out of that? Or if we're adding a member into the fund, that we can't push all that new member information in there as well. And then the last one is around the fact that we're building more and more and more into our doc flows. So again, moving data from one form to another. We don't want you having to grab information from your SuperMate software for one order and then having to effectively either rekey it or connect it again for the next order. The workflow will enable you to not only move data from one to the other, but we're hoping to get it to the point where you may then be able to task it from different parties as well. So that's going to be a big part of our roadmap as we move into this new financial year as well. And we're going to highlight and showcase that bit specifically tomorrow, because it is the one area that we've got working and working quite well as part of that SMSF establishment process. So taking you from the company that you incorporate into the new SMSF, that data, the ability to push it back in and set it up automatically, whether it's in SuperMate or Class or VGL, and then again doing that same data reallocation into the ABN TFN form, and then again other forms that we see that we'll be hooking up, including for LRBAs and for investment strategies and death benefit nominations and the works as well. So if that area is of interest, you can join me at the same time tomorrow as we work through what we see as a smarter establishment process as well. But other than that, that is it for me. Thank you for joining me today in respect to our SuperMate integration. If you do have any other questions, please feel free to ask those now, or you can get in contact with us at team@smartersmsf.com. Leave it there. Hope you have a great rest of the week, get you through to 30 June, and I hope to see you at an upcoming event in the near future. Take care and bye for now.